is being recorded. I was expecting a notice, but what was that? Okay, yeah, there we go. And also there's a live closed captioning transcription for those who wish to follow along that way. If our meeting gets interrupted by technology or Zoom bombing or whatever it may be, we'll end the meeting. I'll send out a new link for people to rejoin by constant contact to our residents, and we'll carry on our business from there. Just a reminder to anybody that does make a comment, please state your name, and if you're a resident, your street for the record for us. And with that, I will turn it
Also remember to ask people to block the video.
Yes, for those of you who are not speaking, if you don't mind turning off your video, that makes it easier for the recording to pick everybody up. And with that, I'll turn it over.
Thank you. So before we begin our public comment period, I want to welcome our new, relatively new, government affairs liaison for PEPCO, who wanted to come tonight and introduce himself. And just to remind everyone regarding the multitude of issues we have with PEPCO, the staff is going to be meeting this week, and then sometime in the near future we'll have a daytime Zoom, so that all of you can ask questions about not only the LED lights but also some of the other issues such as street lights that are out, and our rep will bring in some of the technical people so we can answer. So that, please welcome. You have big shoes to fill, as you know, because we have a fantastic relationship with you.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Is it Slavin? Thank you, Mayor Slavin, for the invite. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Alberto Zagata. So I work with government external affairs for PEPCO, and I work at the municipal level. I handle every municipality in Montgomery County outside of some of the Chevy Chase municipalities, and I also have a handful of municipalities in Prince George's County. Obviously, I am your direct liaison for anything PEPCO related. You can reach out to me. I'm available 24/7. That's part of my job, and so don't feel nervous about contacting me. I've got my phone with me at all times. So if there's anything that you need, especially if it refers to like safety, please reach out to me. I gave my information to Matthew, so feel free to disperse that to anybody. A lot of the things that I get with other municipalities is if there's a street light that's out, I'll immediately put in a street light repair request, and I'll reach out to our subject matter expert who deals with the repairs and just let him be aware that, hey, I'm getting an official request from a municipality, and so those go by real fast. And then any other issues, if you have somebody in your town that may have a billing issue, those can come my way as well. I came previous to government affairs. I was working in the office of the customer advocate, so I would advocate on behalf of customers, to PEPCO. So I know that a lot of times there's a lot of issues that our customers have, and I'm very happy to raise them up, and if there's something that's wrong, we want to definitely correct it as soon as possible. And if you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Okay, council, in case you all have a brief question or something that we can bring back to the table to future meetings. So did you have anything you wanted to say?
No question. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Councilor Borgi.
Yeah, question about reporting street light outage. I mean, there's an online facility to report street light outage. Some residents do that. Is it faster if we go through the town to you to get the street light outage?
So if you haven't put in the actual request, in the online tool, You can come to me, I can put that in as well, but yes, we would definitely want to put that in as soon as possible. And then you can reach out to me, and then when I speak to our subject matter expert, I'll say, hey, by the way, I take a screenshot. Hey, look, this has been put into the system, can we get this, repaired ASAP?
Councilor Halligan,
No, thank you.
Councilmember,
Zakata,
Yes,
can we call you
sure,
Kabir? Nice
Nice
to
to
meet
meet
you. Thank you for making time.
of course.
I have just two questions.
Sure.
One is, we have this major project, as you know, we have funding for it. We would love, an expedited and speedy response from PEPCO.
Without a doubt.
This is long overdue in our town, so any help you give us, and I think we will have a session, as Stephen mentioned, it would be good to dig into that. But we're keen to get it done as soon as possible, so next week, next month.
Yes.
And we can do it.
Next week.
We are very forced to be re-emphasize that.
Thank you.
And the second thing I would say, if you have time, I would love, or some of us would love to walk you through our town when it's dark. And to give you a feel for how dark it is, really in certain parts of the town, and how important it is for us to upgrade these sites.
Without a doubt.
And we have a certain number of residents who would really struggle in that darkness of a certain age, walking their dogs. So I would love to be able to do that. Any one of us would love to be able to do that whenever you have time, so you get a feel for why we are so pressing on this.
Without a doubt, we can set aside some time, next week. I can come by without any problem.
Perfect, let's do it.
Whatever sundown.
We'll follow up.
Basically,
That sounds great. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
excellent question. Councilor Rovak, do you have any?
I do. So what do you think is like the anticipated or expected amount of time before like you report something online for a street like getting fixed and to when it gets fixed?
It depends on what the problem is. So if it's an issue where, something needs to be replaced and we don't have the part, so we have to wait for that part to come in. If it's something that we have on hand, it could be immediate, so within a couple of business days.
How do we know, like, is there a way that we can know that? Cause we have like on this, right in front of this street. Yes, this street. There's several lights out and then around the corner there's a light out that is so dark that you have to use a flashlight, like in order to even walk down that street. And that was reported on October 20th. And we haven't heard anything since then. So I mean, that's a significant period of time since we've gotten those lights fixed or looked at, or even just a comment about it. And I know Matt's been following up quite diligently with, I'm not sure who, but someone at PEPCO. And he really hasn't had any answers back as far as when these lights would be fixed. So I didn't know.
Yeah, the typical turnaround time should be 15 business days.
Yeah.
When we have an issue like that, so if they're in the system and they're still showing like red, like they have not.
Yeah.
Have not been fixed, on Wednesday, Matt, if you could let me know which ones they are. The person that is responsible for that will be here on Wednesday in person.
Okay, yeah, when you leave, you can just even look like down the street that way
Okay.
towards Steel, and you'll be able to see.
Typically, there's a reason why something may not have been fixed. But I think, one of the issues is maybe communication, right? So obviously, if there's a lack of communication, I'm gonna be, your go-between. So if I get an email from you, trust and believe, I'm going to be reaching out to our subject matter expert and, expecting a, response back as soon as possible. And whenever it comes to municipality requests, they're very, very prompt on those. So if it's something that's been, outstanding since October, it's alarming. So I'll go back and check to see, why it hasn't been fixed and at least get some sort of an answer.
Okay,
I'm sure he can check all the record, like when Matt reported it, why to.
well, it's just online, you
Yeah.
can just see, you just hover over the light.
No, but I'm talking about when, because I think Matt had contacted, so.
No, right,
Yeah.
he's
So
been,
thanks for asking the question. Good.
yeah, he's been doing that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. We'll look forward to seeing you soon.
Wednesday, thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Town Manager, is any citizen indicated they wish to speak?
No, somebody did comment, just a reminder, because we're all a little rusty, they just said to speak up and speak towards the mic, when you're speaking, because
Oh, right.
sometimes.
And they probably couldn't hear. Hours.
Yeah,
And so we are planning, just for the record,
we have a new left turn,
we have a lectern, so we should have had it go there. And we are going to be getting.
we're gonna get another
Microphone.
microphone.
Okay, so that there was no.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you, staff, for moving forward on that. So the next item is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion? Move that we approve the agenda as presented. Is there discussion? Hearing none on this, okay, all those opposed. The next item is consideration of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second, is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed, thank you. The next item, public hearing motion to consider approval of the FY 22 audit as presented by Vinci and Associates.
Yes, and we are, thank you, sorry, to interrupt you. We are joined by Mr. Bob Dis, who is, the main auditor. In. All right, I'm just gonna, sorry, Bob, we're having some issues with Zoom today, but I'm gonna. So I'm just gonna. Put you front and center and then turn it over to you.
Nice.
Okay, I think you should be good to go now.
Already? Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Bob Dis, as you heard. I'm the benevolent overlord of Lindsay and Associates with the town's auditor. And I've got in front of me the audit of the town of Somerset for the year ended June 30th, 2022. And I'm going to assume you've either got one in front of you or you've memorized it. So I'm just going to go through and hit a few highlights. Page 1, as always, is the auditor's opinion letter. You may or may not, you probably didn't notice, but I'll tell you, the wording has changed quite a bit from the previous years, simply because the AICPA said to do it this way now. And it gives the same opinion. It gives reasonable assurance that these statements are not materially misstated. And it takes us like 3 pages to say that. Why? Because lawyers. Starting on page 4 is the management's discussion and analysis. It's not written by us, but rather Matthew, maybe with input from others. And it just tells the reader whatever they wanted the reader to know. And it compares the current year, meaning 2022, to the prior year, 21. There's a couple of tables that actually show the two different years, one on page 7. The biggest change you'll notice is change in net position. Last year, you more or less broke even. But this year you were up, increase your equity by almost $1 million. The biggest change there would be the ARPA money that you received. Quite a bit of more revenue, $667,000. There's another comparison there on page 8. And again, it shows that revenues were up quite a bit, whereas expenditures pretty much flat. The actual statements begin on page, what do we got? Page 11 is where the actual statements begin. It's important to know, as always, that there are 2 sets of financial statements. I think it's because Matthew had a buy one, get one free coupon. I'm not sure. But the first set is on the full accrual basis of accounting. It takes everything in the town into account, including things like long-term debt, depreciation, expense, long-term debt, all that stuff, fixed assets. There you've got your assets on top and your liabilities on the bottom. The related income statement is there on page 12. You've got the revenues or expenses by department. You probably can't see this, but expenses by department, revenues by department going across, and then general revenue down there on the bottom right. And on that basis of accounting, you increase your equity by about $595,000. And that ARPA money is going to be under program revenues, operating grants and contributions. You see 785,000 total there. That includes about 600,000 of ARPA money. The other set of financial statements starts on page 13. And that's on the modified accrual basis. It's only current assets and current liabilities. There's no fixed assets, no depreciation, no long-term debt, nothing like that. And there's a reconciliation over to the right to show you what the differences are. The related income statement is somewhere, it's on page 14. And that one, you've got revenues on top, expenditures on the bottom. On that basis of accounting, you increase your equity by 827,000. And again, there's a reconciliation over to the right to show what's the differences. The notes begin on page 17, and there's not a lot of these notes that are different from prior years. So if you've read them in the past, hey, they're all the same. Note 1 is the one that puts you to sleep if you can't, if you got insomnia. So I'll just go through. Usually I point out note 3 is kind of interesting. Page 26, note 3, it shows where your investments are. Got about 1.7 million investments. The bulk of it in the MC Montgomery County pooled investment program or something like that, and another 200,000 in the MLGIP. Capital assets on page 28. That shows we calculated 200 and almost 80,000 of depreciation expense. Didn't you only added 143,000 of fixed assets this year. Your long-term debt is on page 30, note 8. That shows the bond that you owe on that's the pool, right? The pool bathhouse, yeah, another only 980,000 to go. Note 9 is the Wynn case. With the income tax thing they did, you owe another 231,000. So they deduct about 12,500 every year from your income tax. Getting close to the end now. New accounting pronouncements. There's a page and a half of these, but I think the only one that could affect you is leases. I don't know. Do you have any leases that are substantial at all? Probably not. Maybe a copier or something. That's something we'll have to think about before June 30th, what leases you might have, and not leases where you're actually buying something, but where you turn it back in when you're all done. Then on page 35, we compare original and final budget to actual, compute the variance. And then on page 35, we start going more line by line through the whole thing. You'll notice the ARPA money there on page 35, about a third of the way down, 667,000. That was the biggest swing from one year to the next. And that's the end of the report. Did anybody have questions or comments or?
So much longer to read.
Did you say,
Yeah,
did you say you were done?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I stopped talking.
Okay, so Bob, first I want to say, welcome back. The only reason we switched, as you know, is because it's best practice to switch auditors every few years. But I do want to say that you are the most entertaining auditor I've ever heard.
I'll bring my piano next year.
And before I turn it over for questions, what I do want to say to the council is that the audit, this does not have to be approved tonight. And unfortunately, the audit committee has not reviewed it yet, made a recommendation. So what I'm going to do is take questions. I don't think there's going to be any problem. But per our procedures, we want to make sure that the audit committee does glance at this before you approve it. So let's just take whatever questions you have, and then you wouldn't necessarily have to come back when the council approves the audit, unless
Email me.
reason to. But with that, Council President Serpa, do you have any questions?
I just have one question about the ARPA grant. It's a time limited grant, so do we need to capture that somehow, or is that captured in the audit that we got it, or we have to spend it, or we lose it?
Well, the expenditures, whenever you spend it, it'll show up there. If if for some reason, I think you've got 5 years, is it, to spend it? If for some reason you don't, yeah, you would have to give it back. But so far, every town that we've dealt with has said, oh yeah, we're gonna spend it. So if you thought you weren't gonna spend it, we should have shown it as like a liability of some sort, unearned revenue. But you know, you got it. You're gonna spend, you'll spend it. You'll find some way to spend it, I'm sure. I could increase the audit fees if you like.
No, there's a council member Barr, do you have any questions?
I noticed income tax revenues did rise this past year, not quite as much as the budget committee had estimated. Do you know any good basis for estimating future income tax growth or not?
I couldn't hear very well, but how much your income tax is going to grow?
Well, do you have any basis for calculating how income tax could be expected to grow or fall?
No, that's something that's extremely variable, it seems, especially in, you know, the Chevy Chase area. You know, one year the income tax is way up and the next year it's way down and nobody really knows why. No, it's just the number that comes in, as nearly as I can tell,
All right.
unfortunately.
Is that your only question?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Heller, do you have any questions?
Very interesting reading, thank you. But I'm joking. In your opinion, do we have enough in reserve here?
Okay. Occasionally I get a question like that from towns, and I always tell people, well, that's not what we do. That's not our job. You know, we don't, that's management's decision. What I usually tell people, or what a lot of towns do, you look at how much you have, that's not the page, how much you have in like cash on hand. And it looks like you've got about 1.5, nope, make that 3 point something million in cash, between cash and investments. And most towns will set a goal as to how much cash on hand they have, as in the number of, how many months can they go? They usually set a goal of something like 6 months of expenditures in reserve. Well, you spent less than 2 million last year, and you've got 3 million. So you certainly have enough in reserves. You've got more than a year. You know, we have one town that has 4 years worth of cash in reserves. Well, and they're sitting around wondering, what do we spend it on? We have other towns that have like a couple of months, and they need to have better controls. So I would say you're doing better than most.
Thank you, Councilor Kumar.
Mr. Dis, can you hear me, by the way? Can you hear
Can
me?
you hear Bob?
Can you hear
What's
me?
that?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for your work and thank you for this report. I have 2 questions. One is, as part of the audit, you assess our internal controls and systems. I'm wondering if I read through the report and I didn't see anything where you might be making recommendations on that aspect of our practices. So do we need to change anything about our internal controls? Do we need to change in any way in how we're maintaining our accounts and or managing our payments and receivables? If you have any views on that, we would welcome that, or would welcome that in the report. That's one question. And the second question is, in the new accounting pronouncements, I noticed statement number 94, which is about public-private and public-public partnerships and availability payment arrangements. I'm wondering if you could say a bit more about what that involves and how that might impact us potentially moving forward.
Well, as for statement 94, no, I can't say a whole lot about these because I take a look at most of them, or I take a look at all of them, and I kind of switch it on or off in my head. Are any of my clients going to need this? And almost all of them are, no, none of my clients are going to do this. None of our clients have construction, for example. None of them, you know, whatever. And so the public-private partnerships, you know, you don't have any of those where you have a partnership, obviously, between the government and a corporation. Well, you don't have any of that. So none of my clients have those. So no, I didn't learn a whole lot about that.
Thank you.
Leases, yeah, some of our clients have those, so I have an idea of what to do with that. Now, going back to, internal control. We didn't have any specific recommendations for internal control because, as maybe when we come out, we test internal controls by testing cash receipts, cash disbursements, and payroll. We select a sample and see if everything lines up well. And I suppose everything did line up well. Also, I will point out, if I'm not mistaken, you brought on or you consulted with an outside accounting firm, right? Calvin Brown or C. Brown. And that's always a good idea because in the prior year, let me think, in the prior year, some of your bank reconciliations didn't, there was an issue with bank reconciliations. I'll say that. I don't really remember what the issue was. And so therefore, you brought on this other firm, and I think they probably helped you with the bank recs and some other things, some accounting things. So that strengthens your internal control, where you've got somebody coming in and kind of looking things over, making sure things are good.
Great, thank you.
I think maybe we should ask the town manager to elaborate on that question, because before he came here, there were some issues, and I know that he's really taking lead in eradicating those problems. So if you want to just, because I think.
Well, partially, actually, based on Mr. Diss's recommendation, we did bring in C. Brown and Associates, which is a accounting firm that he's worked with before, to do basic bank reconciliations, minor adjustments to QuickBooks for us. Part of the reason for that was an internal control, so that the people that are writing the check or signing the checks aren't doing the bank recs. So that was part of the things that they're doing for us. And as Bob said, they also have more experience with municipalities, so they're making some reconciliations and assignments to the line items, things like that at the end of the month that can help us keep a good record. So when the audit comes around, we're able to do it on time and everything lines up.
Just to say one quick thing, in our town, you also wear the treasurer hat.
Correct. Yes,
So you're both the person spending the money and monitoring the money.
that's right. Yeah. It was previously a clerk treasurer. And so I think that actually is still part of my title, the town manager, clerk treasurer. So, as part of the best practice, in consultation with folks like Lindsay Associates, felt like it made sense to have, I sign checks when they go out, so it made sense to have a third party who's helping to reconcile it.
Well, one day, when we were establishing a position, town manager, it was anticipated one day in the future there will be two separate. So perhaps that will happen next year. I don't know. But thanks a lot. Is that let's take Councilor Rovak. Councilor Rovak, do you have any questions?
I do. So, the Public Safety Committee went over the, kind of the police, we were looking at the police program. And, the budget for the police program is 50,000 and the actual was 64,443. And we looked at the payroll and stuff, and that was much closer to the 50,000. So we were wondering what that extra 14,000 was coming from.
Yeah, that question was posed just to me a couple hours ago, and I didn't have the general ledger in front of me. That's simply the number that was on that account, that expense account. I don't know if Matthew had a chance to look at the general ledger to see what else is in there. I did not.
I followed up with Charles Harrison, who's with that accounting firm that we were just talking about. He's actually out of the office today, so he said he'd get back to me tomorrow, so I can email you and Kumar to let you know what he put in there. I don't know if it was a mistake or a rollover from the year before or something like that.
Okay, but we're not adopting this tonight anyway.
Right, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Barney, Chair.
Yeah, in reading the supplemental material, there's now I noticed a statement saying the audit was delayed for some accounting reasons. Could you explain that a little bit more?
If you give me a moment to refresh my memory, let me see, there was an issue with payroll, I remember that, where the 941s didn't reconcile with the expense accounts. And I think that's when C. Brown came in and they cleared that up. Seems like there was one other issue that had to be resolved. There was another issue that had to be resolved. Do you remember that, Matthew? It wasn't the bank recs, was it?
I think there were some reconciliations that were done the year before that had been transferred over to this fiscal year. And so as we wanted to get done by November 1st, it took us that extra month.
Yeah, last year, the reconciliations were those, it was last year that was being done by Wyrick Cronin, is that right?
Yes.
And there were some enormous things wrong with their reconciliations. And so, yeah, that probably carried over and slowed things down from the prior year.
All right, thank you. So, I mean, you don't have a recommendation that there's anything we could do differently that would make the audit go more smoothly next year?
Well, don't do, yeah, my recommendation is don't do it the way that you had done it in the past. But rather, I would actually keep doing, I think what you've got now is a pretty good system. Yeah, I don't know what happened with that other firm. I don't know. I won't go into detail, but yeah.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Town Manager, has any resident or guest indicated they wish to?
The town attorney raised his hand. I don't know, Ron, if you wanted to make a comment.
Yes, thank you, Matt. Just wanted to answer Council President Circo's question. Under the ARPA final rule, ARPA funds need to be obligated by December 2024 and spent by December 2026. So we'll want to make sure that before December 2024, the funds are obligated, by contract or other promissory instrument.
Thank you.
And then that they're spent over the next 2 years as well. As Mr. Dis said, it'll probably happen before that, but for reporting purposes, we want to make sure that background paperwork is available.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. And so now we will turn this this draft audit over to the audit committee, and hopefully by next month, the council will have an opportunity to approve it. Thank you a lot, sir.
Thank you very much. And if anybody has any, comments, concerns, or what have you, our number is, I think, at the top of page 1.
Thank you for that invitation.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. See you soon. Our next item is the building administrator's report.
Good evening. At 4900 Cumberland Avenue, the original building permit expired December 27th, and the council extended that permit until May 7th. Work is still not begun on that project. At 4816 Essex, we've been talking to the architect over the last few months. On December 20th, I sent the architect an email and asked for an update on the project, but have not received a reply yet. So we don't know where that project stands. We have been told it's being downsized from the original plan, but that's all we know about the project. And there are 2 for sale signs in the town, one at 4515 Cumberland and the other at 5529 Surrey. I've spoken to both of the builders of those projects. I believe they're going to be a tear down and rebuild, and explained to them the basics of the town code and the process. And I suggested to them that they submit a concept plan to the town for review. As of this afternoon, neither had submitted to the county or to the town for any review. That concludes my report.
Wait, what was this address?
Thank you. Council President Circo, do you have any questions?
No, thank you very much, Tony.
Councilmember Moore.
Yeah, it's a couple of points. First of all, at 5613 Warwick Place, I've noticed the work is ongoing there, which you don't mention in your report. That is an oversight, work is ongoing at 5613 Warwick Place.
I'm sorry, I can't hear your question. Could you speak a little louder, please?
Yeah, it's 5613 Warwick is the house I'm talking about. And work is ongoing there, clearly.
Yeah.
Mention that in your report, was that just an oversight or what?
There are.
Doug, did you
Work is
Good question.
ongoing. We issued the permit in October and they're making the changes to the existing house, yes.
Okay, it's just, you don't mention work is ongoing there, that's all. I do want to get back to 4816 Essex, which is the house that has been empty for quite a while now. I took a look at it today. Vines are growing up over the walls in multiple places. I suspect that there's damp inside the house, although one can't actually confirm that from the outside. I am concerned that the property is going to have to be pulled down because it won't be livable in at this point, which means that the choices are limited. It cannot be renovated. Any thoughts on that yourself, Guy?
The last we heard, they're not going to tear it down. The original plans they submitted to us were, they had some major changes to the back of the house. But after talking to them, probably, I guess, in the spring, they decided that they weren't going to be doing some of those changes, and they were just going to make smaller changes to the rear. But we haven't seen anything yet as far as a concept or a building permit. So as far as I know, they're not tearing it down. They're just adding to the rear of the house.
All right.
Well, that's a good question, Councilor Barr, because there could be code violations there. Because just because the house is vacant doesn't mean that you don't have to maintain it. So let's have Wayne or somebody, you, Mr. Town Manager, look into that, because you have to mow the lawn, you have to keep it painted properly. What are some of the things that you noticed?
The main thing I noticed is the vines that are growing up in multiple places. They're at the roof now in several places. So,
Okay, well, those could be code violations, so thank you for bringing that up. Did you have any other questions?
that's it.
Okay, Councilor Howell,
No questions, thank you.
thank you. Councilmember Kumar. Do you have any questions of Doug?
Yeah, Doug, I'm looking at the permit worksheet. And so I'm looking at, can you hear me, Doug? No.
Doug, can you hear?
Doug, can you hear?
No, it's a huge echo. I can't hardly, it's hard to understand what's being said.
Doug, can you hear me now? I'm literally in front of the mic. You want to pass that? Doug, can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, and can you hear me well?
It's still an echo, but it's better.
Okay, I'm looking at the permit worksheet. Do you have that in front of you?
No, I haven't seen it. My
Doug,
worksheet or
it's spreadsheet.
The spreadsheet, the basically the one we have on the wall here in the office.
okay, the handwritten one. Okay, go ahead. I don't have it, but I know what it says.
Okay, I was just saying.
It's old and outdated.
Okay. Well, so I don't know if my question is pertinent then. I'm just wondering, for the two homes on that sheet that got an extension, do you believe they are on track? This is 4900 Cumberland and 5522 Greystone.
both of those have received extensions.
Yes, but are they on track?
As far as I
for-
know, well,
Great.
the 4900 hasn't even started work yet, so it's, I don't know how to say it's on track or off. They said they had problems, medical problems in the fall. The council extended the permit, but they haven't begun the work yet, and it's a small addition on the side of the house. Weather permitting, they could have it done by May, but that's all I know. The extension on Greystone, they're working on it every day. They say they'll be done, and I talked to the contractor, and he says he's planning on being done before the permit expires.
Great, great. I have a quick question for Matt, or a suggestion. Maybe we can put this spreadsheet at the top of the report that Doug does
Okay,
as a summary table.
yeah,
So then we can reference the summary and the narrative.
that works.
Is that cool to do?
Yep.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Rovak, do you have any questions?
I was just curious, I didn't hear the addresses of those two potential tear down houses.
For sale?
I'm sorry, it's still,
I did not hear the two addresses for the houses that you spoke of at the beginning that are for sale, that are the potential tear downs.
typically I don't put it in my report until they've either submitted a concept or we know that it's moving along, but all we know is there's a for sale sign on the property. I can add it if you want, that's no problem.
No, I just didn't hear what the addresses were, and I was just curious. You had mentioned the addresses when you were speaking to them, but I didn't hear what the addresses were.
Which two homes have the for sale sign up?
I think he isn't.
I think there's one,
He just gave two addresses.
it's 40,
It's zero.
Doug, what are the two that have the for sale sign? One is on Cumberland,
One's on Surrey.
and then the other's on Surrey, right?
It's
What is the rest?
4815 Cumberland. There's a builder sign on the front, and that's the first one I called. The one at 5529 Surrey has a Paramount sign on it, so I called Paramount to see what was going on, and I talked to I can't remember the gentleman's name, but the guy that I've been dealing with for years, and he said that as soon as they have a concept, they would send it over to us.
Okay, great, thank you.
The other one is the Boris house.
The one on Cumberland, yeah, okay.
That's the former Lori Morris's house.
She moved.
But you might be able to, call the real estate company to find that.
Yeah, I saw a sign on there too
Yeah.
today. It was.
Yeah.
somewhere.
Because I think it's.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Okay, thank you, everyone. The next item, public hearing motion to consider adoption of ordinance 1122-1. An ordinance to amend the code of ordinances to require the installation of house numbers on existing and future houses and to require certification of compliance in connection with the building permit. Is recommended by the Public Safety Committee, Mr. Town Manager.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick note. I had updated the document that I had sent around late last week. The town attorney had recommended a few changes to make sure that it was representative of the resolution that it is, as opposed to an ordinance town-wide banning single-use plastic. I don't know, Ron, if you were.
And I was
Which one, the ordinance first?
The house.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. This is the easy one, right? So we talked about this at several council work sessions and council meetings. This would essentially make having a house number go on our checklist before we release a bond when construction is happening.
And per the comments at the last meeting, Mr. Mayor, On page 3, under section 112-15F, we've added the requirement that as part of the inspection of permitted work and before a permit is closed out, the inspector would make sure that this house number display requirement has been met. So again, that's been added to the bottom of page 3 of the draft.
Thank you. That was thanks to the hard work of the work session. Is that your only comment?
Yes,
sir?
Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Council President Circa, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Councilor Barr.
No questions. This now, I think, captures what is the town's responsibility here as distinct from the counties.
Thank you, Councilor Helen.
No questions?
Councilor Kumar.
No questions.
Councilor Rovak.
I don't have any questions, but I just have one comment, which is that, you know, for when fire and rescue and people are looking at housing numbers, you know, they do look at your neighbors' houses, you know, to make sure that they're coming to your address. So it behooves everyone to have your neighbors and everyone have their correct numbers that are displayed so that people can easily find your house.
And thank you for that, because that's something that we can periodically publicize. Mr. Town Manager, has any citizen indicated they wish to?
No, there are no comments.
Okay, thank you, council, are you prepared to make a motion?
Do we have any questions, comments beyond, people start adding them in, we're going. Right, okay, let's do it. I move that the council adopt ordinance 1122-1. In order to amend the code of ordinances to require the installation of house numbers on existing future houses and to require certification of compliance in connection with the building permit as recommended by the public safety.
Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Rebecca. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed, thank you. Congratulations on your hard work. The next item is a motion to consider introduction of a resolution prohibiting the use of single-use plastic at the town hall and town pool facilities. Mr. Town Manager.
Yeah, I had jumped ahead, so I already kind of explained this. The town attorney might want to add his thoughts on it. Explaining the edits that he had made, but otherwise, leave it to the council.
Yeah, just quickly, I mean, I thought Matt did a great job drafting that. I just made a few edits to clarify that the policy applies to town-sponsored events and meetings, and, you know, not necessarily events that may be conducted by tenants at the town hall, which could also be regulated. But to regulate third-party conduct, I would recommend an ordinance, an actual, you know, adoption of a law. But we can bind ourselves, the town, with a policy. And according to the recommendation, the policy was to be limited to town events. So I believe as written, this does capture the recommendation.
Let me, so thank you, everyone, and thank you, council. I was thinking, I had a brainstorm that perhaps we should add in the tennis court, because there are town events at the tennis court where they might this. So you might want to think about that. Remember, tonight is just an introduction, but I do want to point out that the chair of the pool committee may weigh in a little bit here, and so there's no, this is just an introduction, so there's no hearing connected to an introduction. But I wanted to point out that the chair of the committee, I sent you all a comment, and you might want to consider that when you decide whether to introduce something or not. With that, Council President Circa, do you have any questions? No questions. Councilor Ball.
No questions.
Councilor Heller.
Yes, I've been in contact with Matt and, we wanted to see if we could add an amendment to this and pull out the pool for now. What he's feeling is, number one, the pool committee has not had a chance to discuss this. And they will, but they haven't. And that we'd like to feel our way on this, that it might be difficult for the pool to take out all plastic. And we'd like to really consider it and think it through before the pool is part of this new ordinance.
Okay, thank you. That's why I also wanted to throw out this whole issue that if you're gonna consider banning plastic and for events that the town sponsors in these two places, you might also want to consider the tennis court where we do have town sponsored events and it would be relevant. But remember also, this is just an introduction, so there will be time. Remember, we have a legislative process that is introduced, and then there's ample time for any resident or citizen or committee to weigh in. So, but it's up to all of you to decide when you introduce this. Councilmember Coomer, do you have any questions?
Yes,
Thank you, Jeffrey. I have two things. One is, I think I have a procedural concern that Matt brought up. So I think this was the last work session. I don't have any recollection of this stuff at the previous work session, and I missed the last work session. And I feel like anything so substantive probably requires full turns in work sessions, as I've already suggested. It allows us to get our mind around it. So procedurally, I would request that it's always a good Matt's comment. Really good to get people to weigh in, because it's not that we want compliance, right? We want people not to use plastic. So I think that we do this actual compliance to bring people along the process. So that's one thing. Second thing is more on a definition perspective. Again, since I didn't have time to be involved in this, I looked at this when the agenda was sent. And I understand Maryland has banned styrofoam sale per state, which is a form of plastic. And because of that, maybe 9 types of plastic. And then there are certain types of plastic that are recyclable. So like there are bottles and cups that those studying that earlier that are recyclable. Now there is a broader movement that what we consider to be recyclable is actually not getting recycled. It's a separate issue. But there are certain plastics that are recyclable. So I'm wondering if we can clarify what we mean by single-use plastic.
Because the question,
Yeah,
that's the question, the one just down to
yeah, this is maybe the town attorney can answer that, because it focuses on the usage, but not the type of plastic and its ability to be recycled. And it doesn't reference any Maryland law, given that Maryland already bans one type of plastic. So I bring this up to, maybe we can answer it now, but it again is a substantive thing that would be good to discuss.
Did you, Mr. Town Attorney, did you hear the?
I think I heard most of it, Mr. Mayor, regarding, the definition of what we mean by plastic. I mean, we certainly could come up with a definition, as currently written, it would apply very broadly to anything someone reasonably believes to be plastic.
And Ron, if I may quickly follow up, this is now a very cursory Google search. I just looked at what does Maryland law say about plastic. And it turns out there are categories of plastic, and there are plastic that's recyclable. So I think we may want to be a little bit more thoughtful here, especially since ultimately we want compliance, right? We want people to make the right call for the environment. So I would recommend at least one more turn. I would be happy to bring in a share of reports that I found that could inform us.
Okay, that's good. But did you ever, you'll be able to debate, but you finish the questions.
Yeah.
Did you have any other questions about the draft?
Yes, I have one more question, not about the draft, but about the background. When this was recommended by, I think it was the environmental committee, was there any supporting report or assessment or background materials that were provided? If they were, please do circulate that. Community liaisons.
Let's let the town manager answer.
I can resend you, pulling it up right now. They've written a memo recommendation, to not use plastic and compost, and it's cited, a few articles, that.
Yeah, if you don't mind sending that. Thank
Will
you
do.
so much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Councilor Barlow, do you have any questions?
I have another procedural question, which is, so from time of introduction to final adoption, what is that time frame generally?
I'll let the town attorney answer that.
Yeah, it's up to the council. I mean, generally speaking, under our policy, it's, a 2-month process. You introduce in 1 month, accept public comments and take action the second month. But that's not mandatory. You can always move slower if you wish.
Okay, it doesn't have to, it doesn't have like a time limit, like a ticking clock on it that it
No,
has.
no. Our ordinances do expire after being introduced, but they can always be reintroduced. But for this resolution, no, it won't expire.
Okay, and then also, so if we're gonna be looking to do a potential plastic ban for town-sponsored events, does that include the swim team at the pool and swim team events?
As currently written, yes, it would.
Okay. And like, what about like food trucks at the pool and stuff?
Yes, it would, as currently written.
Okay. Yeah, well, I think that,
So this is just as questions they will be able to debate.
oh, okay.
So do you have any other questions about the draft?
I just got a question at the town clerk.
Maybe we can do one more round of questions.
Okay, yeah, let's go. Do you have any further questions on the draft? So after you ask the questions, then I will turn it over to the council president to make a decision on whether or not you're going to introduce it tonight. It's as simple as that. Council president, sir, do you have any other questions, further questions about the current draft of the introduction?
No.
Thank you. Councilor Barr.
I would like to make a few remarks about plastic pollution. Because that's really what is.
Well, why don't you wait and do that when you're debating? Now, the purpose of this round is to ask questions about the draft. So do you have any?
I have no questions about draft.
Okay, cool. Councilor Heller.
So this is cool. So if we have a swim team event and the pool comes, so they can't bring in plastic either.
Like like the swim team.
It's swim team,
Like a meet.
a meet, I'm sorry, a meet. And so our team has the rules they follow, and we tell the other team, no plastic, but. So it does mean the other team as well. Right?
Yeah, yes, it would be the other. team that
Let's
we're all on.
the town attorney answer that.
Yeah. I'm rereading the recommendation. I don't know if that was specifically contemplated, and it wasn't contemplated by me when I helped write this. So I mean, we were focused more on things that the town provides at town events, not necessarily someone bringing a plastic bottle to a town event. I don't know that that's included in the intent, and I wouldn't interpret what we've written to exclude someone from attending a town event from bringing their own plastic. Certainly, like if we have a parade, people may be walking around with their own plastic bottles.
Does that mean that when we say town event, is like we have the newcomers party at the pool, so that's an event. But I'm gonna go down to the pool and swim today, and I'm gonna bring my plastic bottle with me. So, and is that not allowed? I didn't want me to apply, but I can come with my plastic bottle.
That's sort of.
Is that
No,
right?
yes, yeah. The latter was not contemplated as being prohibited,
So we're
but
just
we-
talking about events.
but we should clarify that.
But
Because I can see how this could create confusion, because we do say sell or use, and use is probably too broad.
Okay, did you have any other questions?
no, that's it.
Thank you,
And
Councilmember.
there should be use by the town.
Just building on that, Debbie's question, Ron, can you enumerate which activities you intended to regulate with this draft?
Sure. So the Environment Committee's recommendation was, quote, henceforth, the EC recommends that the town council not use plastics and perform compost at all town events. So I took that to mean if the town is holding an event, sponsoring an event, and the town's providing refreshments or the like, the town's not going to do so using plastics.
But is that specifically covering council meetings? That's what it reads like.
I interpret that to mean anything that the town does and not just the council, because I mean, most of our events are, well, I guess it's a question for the EC, but I interpreted it to mean all town events.
For example, the 4th of July celebration,
Right, I think that's where the focus.
the 4th of July celebration.
So the town would not pass out water balls.
Okay.
The focus was
I
on
think-
all of the.
I think you
Okay.
answered the question, so.
Okay.
Okay, did you have any other, see, this is all good because it wouldn't be beneficial to pass a law that is vague. So it's good that you bring up all these questions so that when you ultimately consider the final passage, you include all the answers. So did you have any further questions about the
I
draft?
just wanted to repeat what I understood, what I'm understanding, if you don't mind. So what I'm understanding is this is town funded and organized events such as the 4th of July celebration, council meetings, etc. No single-use plastic, which has a very broad definition in the current draft, to effectively mean all plastic, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're done.
No, I'm sorry, I just need to step in and interject. No, if you have what is, $20 water bottles that you get at REI, that's not a single-use plastic. You can bring that.
Right.
Plastic is okay, it's just.
What are you using on that?
Okay.
English based. So if I refill my water bottle from Giant. and
But you need to
it's
ask,
not
you
single use.
need to ask Ron, because Ron drafted this.
Yeah, that's what I'm
So
wondering.
you're bringing up all these issues, which you might want to eventually include in all these definitions of it. But right now, you're just trying to find out what this draft means, not how you're going to change it, so then you can change it. So
That Ron, was my interpretation correct?
Well, so according to the EC recommendation, when that's read in its entirety, I think what they're really getting at is we eliminate, quote, plastic cutlery, plates, and water bottles, and replace them with paper that can be composted.
Okay, so replace plastic, what, can you say that again, cutlery
Cutlery, plates, and water bottles.
with compostable material?
Right,
So not recyclable material, compostable,
right.
okay.
and remember, everybody, because we're all learning here, that this is a resolution. So that the town will follow a practice. This does not mean that if someone brings a plastic bottle to a town event, that they're gonna be fined.
Right, or turned away.
Yes, right, that's why he said, in the future, you might want to consider an ordinance that does come with punishment. But this is just, the way it's written now, you know, you can all decide whatever you wanna do. But I'm just trying to focus on what this is, so you understand what we're working with now. And then you might wanna add other stuff. Maybe you all do wanna decide that if somebody brings a plastic to a town event, that they will fine $100. I don't know.
With all.
That's not what I'm saying.
With the limited intent, it's not clear the current.
Well, that's why
we will need to find.
That's why your
Even
question-
with the limited intent.
and that's why your questions are good, because this is way more complicated than it looks. And it was a very nice recommendation, but it's your job to make it clear and fair. And just because the committee makes a recommendations which sound so good, it's really not. Because there are unintended consequences.
I'm good.
You're good, okay, Councilor Rowe, do you have any other questions about the draft?
No, I just think that, you know, we really wanna make it clear, like, I understand a town event to be like the newcomers party or, you know, 4th of July, but I'm not clear that swim meets would be considered a town event.
Well, except the town attorney said that per this draft, they are,
Okay,
so then you might wanna,
so, okay, but that's in part of our discussion.
yeah.
Okay,
Because remember, all you're deciding tonight is whether you're ready to introduce the baseline idea, draft with the idea. Or if you want to decide to do it in a future date after you're working. So now I will turn it over to the council president to lead the discussion on whether or not to introduce this tonight.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So we've had a discussion here. There is, before we got to this point, the normal lighting has been very helpful and good. So, first off, I guess my first comment, just like with Public Safety Committee and the ordinance on numbers, I really appreciate and respect the engagement of our committees, and I treat their recommendations very seriously. And my desire is to enable those committees recommendations to be realized. I don't want to be an obstacle, I want to make them come to fruition if possible. That's, I think, it's a way. I think that as written, this policy is a little too far from where we want it. We'll probably want it to be to introduce it tonight, I think. If we talk about it one more time, maybe if we have some comments, we can provide them to Matt, I can feed them to Ron, and we can try and put this all in for the next work session. We discuss further the work session during the next month.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And Ron, do you have?
I'm okay with going to another work session, but I just want to make some points about plastic pollution. I serve on the Solid Waste Advisory Committee at Montgomery County. I'm actually vice chair of the committee. And one of the major pollutions at the moment in the world is plastic. And the problem with plastic is that it doesn't decompose. Instead, it breaks into smaller and smaller pieces until they become microfibers. Those microfibers are ingested by us. In fact, they've even been found inside human placentas. They're ingested by fish, by animals. Plastic at the moment is covering a large part of the Pacific Ocean floor because it doesn't degrade, it just stays. That's the problem with plastic. Now, in terms of recycling, it would be a good solution, but there is no market for most kinds of plastic. The only kind of plastic where there is a market for is what I call milk container plastic. It's very thick plastic, that jugs that you get milk in. That kind of plastic is actually valuable, and there is a market for that. All of the kinds of plastic, including the thin plastic that water bottles are made out of, there really is no market for. Also, frankly, very few of these are actually recycled. Most of them are thrown in general trash, as happens to them. So when there is very easy ability to substitute for plastic, we should do it. And at the moment on the market, there are absolutely paper plates and compostable cutlery that the town can use, that the pool can use for events that will substitute very well for plastic, and we will reduce our contribution to the plastic pollution problem by doing that. This resolution does not mean that we are making homeowners switch to these things, and they can take plastic bottles to the pool if they want to, or on the parade if they want to. It is not about private homeowners, it is about what this town does. Possible.
Right, I just be able to work
I
there.
just have two things.
Wait a second,
I just wanted to quickly add two things on that, which is that there's a Greenpeace report that I discovered in trying to prepare for this meeting, which is that there are, you know, all these different categories of plastic that are supposedly recyclable. But it turns out this is very new, very recent analysis, a very small percentage is actually recyclable. And it varies by category. So there are some categories that are 100% not recyclable, even though they have that logo on them, the materials have that logo. So I'll share that report because that gives us the sense of the magnitude of the problem. Secondly, I think it was just a few days ago, Britain will be banning countrywide single-use plastic. So it's on the horizon countrywide. So Maryland bans the sale of a type of plastic, which is styrofoam, which we don't know. But Britain is going further countrywide. So I think, you know, all of it in reaction, in response to this challenge of microplastics in all parts of our life.
Yeah, so that's weird. We recognize the problem, the issue, you know, and we all get together and move on.
John, I think we're all on the same page that we need to take this back to a work session and talk about it. But I wanted to throw one thing out, and we talk about engaging our teams. A really good civic project for our teams would be to really research this issue, what is really compostable and what's not. You know, and then maybe bring it back to our town to share and say, hey, we can all make a difference here by using these kind of, you know, baggies and whatever. But here's an opportunity, I think, to engage our kids.
The kids are engaged on this already, you learn quickly.
I know, but I mean,
How would you like us to do that?
why don't we go to Amalia Leviton and ask her if she would like to chair a committee to study this and then bring recommendations to the town. This is a little off topic, I'm sorry.
No, but that's fine. I would interpret that as potential next work session topic.
Yes, I'm sorry.
On, maybe we should stand up a team or youth committee. So we get to know.
I'd love to get the kids into this.
Yes, no, I think that's a good thing. Okay, thank you. Shannon, any other?
No, I agree with everyone.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Town Attorney, since this is on the agenda as a motion, does a motion need to be made to defer this to a time certain?
No, Mr. Mayor, because it is just to consider. So we don't necessarily have to have a motion.
And it's a resolution, right? So.
That's right, Mr. Mayor.
So we don't have to do anything. Okay, thank you very much. The next item is the town manager's report.
Sorry.
Take your time.
Just trying to track down the recommendation. There we go. Okay, so a couple of updates on some of the major projects. So for the roadway master plan, I was a little bit concerned when I got back that we haven't gotten much of a response yet. So I started reaching out to some engineering firms directly. Now, some may come in by the end of the week, by the end of this week is when originally we said bids were due. But again, the fact that we haven't gotten any at this point and kind of very little questions coming back to us might be that it fell off the radar of some of these companies over the course of the holidays or something like that. So, as I said, I've been reaching out directly to a few engineering firms that I thought might be interested, that I had researched and popped up as bidding this kind of work and sent them the RFP. And a few have said, thanks for sending it along, we'll take a look at it, it sounds like something we'd be interested in. But we probably wouldn't be able to put together a real proposal by Friday. So I tentatively said, you know, do what you can, feel free to reach out to me, and our goal ultimately is to get somebody selected for the February meeting so we can get going then. That would just mean we might not have a recommendation ready to go at the work session. It might just come straight to the council meeting at that point. So just wanted to give you all a heads up on that. For streetlights, I've set up a meeting, Mr. Zagata was here today. Him, his boss, the vice president of government affairs, some of the engineers at Pepco. I understand, I had a brief conversation with, his name is Will Ellis, he's the senior VP with Pepco. That they're going to assign somebody specifically to our town for this project as a lead engineer, and so that person will be at this meeting. So I think we'll be able to really get the ball rolling on Wednesday. We'll get introduced to those people, move forward with it there, and then as the mayor mentioned, once we get some clarity there, we can then schedule a follow-up meeting where the council can kind of pick their brains and get a better sense directly from them what their plan is to help us move forward on that. On the website, I don't have a ton to report that's new since December. In December, I had mentioned we're kind of in a 6 week or so time frame where they're doing a lot of programming to move what are essentially PDF pages to workable pages on their CMS system that are usable, editable, able for us to log into it, and also customizing each page, transferring over the data, things like that. So I think by the end of this month or so, I would expect them to have some product for us to start reviewing with them, and then in February, we'll have a beta test to start getting to work on it. That's when we'll start doing training with the committee. Any council members that want training, we can set that up. Each council member will have their own page, so if there's things that you want to highlight on there, you can do that. It should be relatively easy to use, and it's up to you. You want to and how much. But so in February or so, I think is when we'll hit that milestone, and then in the spring, around April, I would expect us to have the new website up and running. We have the stormwater infrastructure. I have reached, I heard back from a couple of companies, so I expect that we'll have some proposals in at the end of this week that we'll be able to go over at the work session. I have a call with Neil Weinstein tomorrow, actually, to just go over what they've been working on and fine tune whatever it is he's working on, and make sure that it's ready for us. And the other project, other couple projects, we got the beekeeper, still on track to have them selected for the spring. Solar panels, reached out directly to a couple of companies who've all expressed some interest in that. So I think over the next couple of weeks, I'm gonna be meeting with some of those companies to just show them the roof and they can put together their proposal on what would work here at the town hall and over at the pool. And speaking of the pool, American Pool did some pressure testing to kind of get that data that we were looking for about the pipes to confirm that it made sense for us at this point to wrap that aspect of the work into the repairs at the pool. I emailed Rob Smith, who's the, I can't remember exactly what his title is, but he's the construction person over there. He's the man, the mayor knows that. He's out of town actually through Wednesday, but he emailed me to say he was gonna send a report when he gets back, and so then it's just a matter of folding that information into our proposal, and then I've already tentatively reached out to a few companies that can do the actual work for us, so we'll have a competitive bidding process and have that to consider so that we can get a contractor selected, and then early spring, maybe even before spring, depending on when the equinox is, we can get them selected, get the permitting process going. They had said we should definitely, at the absolute latest, we should have it done by May, so that we give a good 5 months, 4 or 5 months from Montgomery County to get the permitting. I had heard a story from one of the companies. They said Montgomery County, it's just, there's no telling really how long it takes to go through their permitting process. So the earlier we get it done, the better off we are, just to be able to get right into it once the pool closes. Because they gave the example, there was one project where they did something at one pool, and they did literally the exact same work. He said, I worked on a permit, and all I did was copy paste the name of the pool, and it took them 6 months to do the project. Whereas another one, I got it in and it was done in 1 month. So it sort of is, it goes into the ether, and you just have to wait until they get around to it. So I think we're on pace to be able to get that done. We've already done the permitting process. It's held up right now for the concrete work. It would just be a matter of amending that to do the pipe work if we want to do that, and then pool work if that's also part of it. Yeah.
Didn't we have a permit?
Hold on, why don't you ask me to speak? Let's not use.
Okay, I'll try to wrap up. So streets and sidewalks, one thing is that AV Veers did do some emergency repairs to a few sections of curb and sidewalk in November. And if you've driven down Dorset Avenue, there was that sinkhole that was kind of forming, and there's a little section that they milled and paved over, so that's no longer an issue. Holding off on major, especially street work right now, because we're doing this long-term plan and master plan. One thing we can consider, I think maybe once we get the bids in for that master plan, once we get a sense of the timing. In the past, we've hired a company to come in and do some shaving down basically of these sidewalks for any major tripping hazards. I know you can only do that a few times before you start to really affect the integrity of the concrete, but that might be something we could look into if we're not getting any work done this spring. That might hold us off until we get a real long-term plan in place. Directory should be, I think we just got a draft, is that right? Linda's nodding yes, we got a draft today, so I think that should be going to print any day now. Had a few follow-up conversations about police with some of our nearby towns, and I had a conversation with Friendship Heights as well. They were asking us about what our program looks like. they actually have almost the opposite problem as us, whereas we have some cars maybe that get broken into at nighttime. They've had a problem where some contractors over there during the day, their cars will get broken into when they're at a work site or something like that. It's not something we've heard of, but they reached out, what would be our interest in maybe doing a joint plan with them. I said, we'd be interested to hear what they have in mind, but, get back to us when it's a little bit more fleshed out. I think they're looking at what some of our neighbors have done as well. One thing I did note is we had talked about, well, Kenwood has a private security, and I talked to them about that because Friendship Heights has a private security company that they use primarily for parking enforcement. And they said it works well for parking, they're able to issue the tickets, but the problem is for other crimes, they're not able to arrest anybody. So that they really, at best, could maybe apprehend somebody and call 911 and wait until police actually respond, which is why they're looking for something that's more like a supplemental coverage, secondary employment agreement like we have. A reminder about the code that the code amendments that we had passed in November related to stormwater go into effect tomorrow. So Doug had mentioned a couple of sites that had for sale signs. I got a call today from another firm on Cumberland, an architectural firm on Cumberland asking about it. Any new projects that come in are going to be subject to that new code. One thing with that, I had this was a late addition. I started thinking about this as I typed up the report. I think what I'd like to do is bring on a consultancy engineering firm that can help us with stormwater, so we get another perspective on it that can help us do some of the review and planning on an interim basis, get a couple of projects under our belt maybe, and then after that, we can really work on an RFP so that we can get a longer term contract to figure out what exactly do we need as part of our structure for town and procedurally for town review. And then the last thing I just wanted to note is trash cans throughout town. We've ordered some lidded trash cans that will replace the ones that are just right by the street. So I can't remember exactly how long it is to ship them, but we should have them delivered and installed by the spring. So that should help with beautification of the town as well. That's it. I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Council President Circo. Any other questions?
One question comment on the potential part-time support of an engineer or stormwater management. I think that's a great idea. I would be interested in an individual who has expertise in some of the environmental best practices. So, because we don't really have the expertise to assess whether or not it's reasonable or possible for a particular site to install certain activities, certain measures. But it'd be good to have someone on our side that could assess that.
Yeah, I want to try to find a firm that has some practical experience, but also maybe not one that's being hired to do a lot of these renovation jobs as well. So hopefully we can thread the needle at this.
Okay, that's it.
So Council report, any questions?
Yeah, and also while you're on stormwater, I had that concern that any engineer you recruit is going to have some business with the town anyway.
Right.
So I'm not quite sure how you're going to be able to steer yourself around that one, but good luck.
Yeah, hopefully. Like I said, I would like to bring on. We'll see what happens. I think we'll be able to thread the needle on that and find somebody that can help us.
All right, on the website, you actually asked for an update from Revised before the holiday break. Did you receive that update?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, actually, they had here. having a little bit of internet. Can I get back to you after the meeting and send you a response? I think they had basically sent me a timeline with it, and it said, this is where we are.
You can
This,
start with the whole cover, they can help me out on it.
sure, yeah, will do, yeah.
Councilor O'Donnell.
On the pool concrete permit, didn't we have a permit?
Yes, so that's why on the concrete aspect of it, we're actually, we had a permit and we actually paid to extend that permit rather than let it go because it would cost us less to do that. So that permit is still open.
Okay.
It's just a matter of amending it to include the piping.
Nothing else?
That's it.
Okay, Councilmember Kumar.
Matt, once again, it's a lot of work. Every time you do these reports, I'm just blown away at the volume of work, so thank you so much. And I just want to remind you, we talked about a number of times, different times, maybe an added resource in the fiscal year. So as we come into the budget process, I think there are different roles. And one of the things about.
What he has unfilled positions.
Yeah, I would fill the position of my.
He has unfilled positions.
So that's one comment. The other is, you know, it was really great, thanks to you and Jeffrey, it was great to have the PEPCO representative here. That gives me some comfort that this is gonna move. It's all very good. This meeting on Wednesday, what's this meeting exactly? And then, what is the timeline you are driving towards that? What is it that's ideal for you right now?
So the meeting, there's I think there's 5 people from Pepco that are gonna be there, so including Alberto. There's I think the vice president mentioned, and I think 3 engineers are gonna be there, and I haven't been introduced to the engineers yet, but my understanding is that one of them is going to be our project manager for our specific project. My timeline at this point is that what we hoped for was by the end of the calendar year, we would be able to get that first third in. And then we would be able to get another third in, so we'd be about 2/3 done this fiscal year, finish it off next year.
This fiscal year.
This fiscal year, get the first third in at the end of the calendar year, but get 2/3 in over the course of this fiscal year. If that makes sense. So between.
Your original.
That was original.
That calendar year that's.
That's right. Obviously, that is coming on. I think at this point, what I would like is by the end of June, by the end of this fiscal year, construction is started and we have an agreement in place to get the entire town done. And we do that third of the town, at least that they.
My very strong recommendation would be to have a very aggressive timeline that you present to them.
Okay, so the purpose of the meeting on Wednesday is to prepare for the meeting with all of you.
Yes,
And so hopefully that's gonna take place this month.
yeah.
Okay, but see, the idea is that the meeting needs to take place during the daytime, because that's the only time all these technical people are available. We've done this with everyone, right?
We try, it's good.
So the idea is that hopefully you'll be able to ask that question.
I will ask
This
that
month.
question, but just so that they can answer it without having in mind, please prepare them on Wednesday.
Well,
That we need aggressive timeline.
An aggressive timeline would be, they say it takes 8 weeks to go through their internal process to do a third of the town. So an aggressive timeline would be, okay, start the clock after Wednesday. 8 weeks from then is, mid to late March, and then.
You're involved in that in council, that's,
I have a last question.
But I mean, could I add that the ARPA money that we're using, and it is on, it has appeared.
No, you know.
okay, it's all good.
One last common question is that this is the second time or third time I've heard where we put up an RFP and we've not received responses. And it's on the MML website. Is this just part of the course for small town procurement? Is this the nature of the work that we're pushing? Is there any way to make this work better? I don't know.
Unfortunately, in my experience, it is kind of the nature of the work in the municipalities that we're.
They're just not vendors doing this work, or it's just
It's the size of the job that we.
doing like pool bidding with other towns, like, are there ways, we don't need to resolve it.
Let me tell you what you want to wish for is a recession. At the moment, it's a hot economy, and these guys have a choice of contracts that they can work on.
Do we have,
When we have a recession, then they'll come to us.
all I'm, as a, along your third to-do list, which is that it can be, have some preferred vendor list, we identify, like you have audit, for example. Because I think you waste a lot of cycles.
Yeah,
doing this.
no, it's a good point. Yeah.
But the answer is that we are not,
Procurement policy
we-
too.
a lot of these companies are not understanding small. So it's a problem in every.
I know.
Okay, thank you. Finally, Councilor Roca.
Fine. Okay, so my questions, well, I had them all now, I just forgot them. Hold on. Oh, sidewalk. So for the sidewalks, like you were saying that, as part of the master plan, like not doing stuff with the streets necessarily until we kind of figure this out. There's still like some really wonky places of sidewalks that are pretty hazardous, around. Should we not be trying to get those fixed? I mean, like I look down on Big Cumberland towards, the Little Falls path, it's all like kind of crazy. And how long does it take to get the sidewalk repaired if we need to do some of these repairs?
Yeah, I think what we would probably do is do them in segments, and so it may make sense to do at least some of that shaping down. It is something that it's kind of cyclical in town. Part of it is the trees and the tree roots grow up and then they just push it, and then you shape it down, but the tree roots continue to push it up.
But we have money in the budget. for
Yeah.
repairs
Cause I saw in the budget, like, we didn't spend it.
like that. Yeah, we should be doing that.
Yeah, there was like, it said like sidewalk repairs and
We don't, yeah, this has come up.
streets and sidewalks.
Yeah,
We had
so,
28 grand, we spent 4.
so we need, when there is a hazard, we don't wait till we replace it, we fix it.
Yeah, there's also, I mean, this is what Marty Shaw was complaining about.
Yeah.
The sidewalk opposite 506 Trent Street has been damaged. It is highly likely that it was damaged by the dump trucks that were taking soil out of this 506 Trent. It needs to be repaired.
Okay. So we don't need to have, we don't need to take. a lot of time.
What I'm trying to ask is, have we got any way of going to the builders to get them to repair it?
Yes, before that is what we hold bond money for, is to hold their feet to the fire and hold them responsible for repairing that before we release them.
Okay, Councilor Rowe, get ready for the questions.
I do. So the pool and so the pipe analysis, we do not have back yet.
I haven't gotten the actual report from him.
So we don't know if we are gonna need to do that right away or not.
I don't know for sure. I suspect, in my conversations, there was evidence that there might be some leaks, but we wanted to go with this testing, which would give us a clearer picture of it, which I don't have the results of yet.
Okay, but the guy's coming back from vacation this week, so we
Yes,
just know.
yeah.
Will you email us and let us know?
Yeah, Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll make a note.
Cause it's, you know, I think the pool is very important, to make sure that we, you know, can get it fixed appropriately as soon as we can for all of the swim season stuff. Okay, and then the police. So I just had a quick question about what you had said about, Friendship Heights, like they're not allowed to arrest people. But I think that our people are not allowed to arrest, our police are not allowed to arrest either, right?
They're
They're not allowed to ticket.
They can ticket.
I thought
They
that
can, they can enforce county law
Yeah,
and enforce specific town laws such as the traffic if we have them stationed. But yeah, generally speaking, they're wearing county uniforms and can enforce, you know, state and county law.
okay, because there was that collective bargaining, clause that was kind of in question. As to what they are able to do, which is kind of why we were talking about. Oh, is it they can't get their cars?
If the criminal falls into their car, they can be arrested. They're not allowed to patrol the streets now.
There was something, and I can't remember what the details are, that I think I'm on the same brainwave as you. There was something about them having to, when they respond to a call, there was a certain protocol for it that they maybe had to call back to the on-duty police.
I think that we should have.
They're not allowed.
Excuse me, sorry, let's have the town attorney get a clear answer to your question. Okay. If you could,
Yes, yeah, Mr. Mayor. So under the collective bargaining agreement, the secondarily employed county officers are not allowed to enforce town law. So for example, if we prohibited plastics at town events, they could not issue citations for use of plastics. But if in their secondary employment, they're stationed somewhere and witness a violation of county or state law, they are allowed to take action as a county officer. They also, under the collective bargaining agreement, can engage in targeted traffic enforcement. If that makes sense. Does that answer your question?
So if they see someone blowing through a stop sign, they can pull them over?
Absolutely. That's a violation of state and county law as well. So they would issue the citation under county or state law.
Okay,
I thought there was something in the collective bargaining agreement where they couldn't move in their vehicles in the town in pursuit of a violation.
I'm not familiar with that limitation. There is a general provision that says if they're arriving in their patrol cars, they're allowed to use their patrol cars as observation posts. But as Council President Circo said, they're generally not allowed to drive around the town and patrol, but they can be stationed in their car. And if they observe a violation, they can pursue the violator in their car.
And we were buying bikes, I believe, where then they would be able to move around on the bikes. That was my thought.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but I imagine that's right.
I think that is right. I think maybe the Public Safety Committee was sort of looking into, there were some questions, but I think then we would be responsible for insurance liability while they're on the bike. And so that was what was sort of our holdup on that, as I recall.
yeah, it further clarifies for me that, to really understand what it is that the police are, what we have and what they can do and what we're paying for and everything, so.
Yeah, when do we invite them
okay,
to come to a council?
We're
going to do that.
we're working on that.
Great.
You have the floor.
And then I was just gonna say, for the consultancy firm on an interim basis for the stormwater review. much to what Robin already said, I mean, you're gonna run into a lot of conflicting people, I think. And, so, cause that kept happening with me, people really recommend like going to a Virginia firm or, you know, somewhere not in Maryland and not in Montgomery County to try to find someone who is a little bit more objective.
Okay, yeah, good, thanks for that recommendation.
And then I think that was it.
Okay, thank you. We are ready for motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
And we'll see everyone on January 23rd, 5:30 for a work session. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Actually.
It's Shannon. So, there is a new body called the Friendship High